My wife divorced me, her poor husband, after my business failed, or so she thought, unaware of my $500 million fortune. Funny how love can vanish faster than Wi-Fi in a cheap motel, huh? One moment she's calling you my king. The next, she's filing for divorce because your business took a little nap. But hey, they say money doesn't buy happiness. I say it sure buys better revenge. At first, when my business started to dip, Vanessa played the supportive wife. You know, the whole we'll get through this together routine. She'd rub my shoulders and tell me, "You're a genius, Ethan. This is just a phase." I believed her. I really did. But then the phase lasted longer than her patience. And somewhere between late rent and frozen credit cards, we quietly became you. It started small. One night, I came home to find she'd ordered takeout just for herself. I asked, "You didn't get me anything?" She smiled and said, "Oh, I thought you weren't hungry. You know, since you're always too busy saving the world." That's how it begins, with sarcasm disguised as jokes. Then came the birthday dinner. Her friend Melissa was there, the kind who thinks marriage is just another investment portfolio. We were at this fancy restaurant, the kind where the napkins have more confidence than your wallet. When the waiter handed me the bill, I reached for it out of habit, and Vanessa laughed loudly. "Oh, honey," she said, "don't worry about it. Melissa's husband's got it." Everyone chuckled. Everyone except me. I smiled through it, but that laugh stayed with me longer than the food. After that, every outing felt like an audition for her new image. She'd dress up, post pictures with captions like, "Independent women glow different." Meanwhile, I'd be in the background, the invisible man who once built her dream home. One night, at a family dinner, her cousin joked, "Vanessa, you used to love entrepreneurs. What happened?" She didn't miss a beat. I still do. Just the successful ones. The table laughed. I didn't. I just kept chewing. The worst part wasn't even the words, it was the looks. You know the look people give you when they're trying to hide pity behind politeness? The kind that says, "Poor guy, she's way out of his league now." That look became my dinner guest every weekend. Then there was the charity gala. Oh, that night's etched into my brain. Vanessa insisted we go because it'll be good for networking. Translation, she wanted to remind her old friends she still belonged in their world. Halfway through the evening, she introduced me to some banker as Ethan. My husband, he's between projects right now. Between projects? That's what she called the months I'd spent rebuilding from ashes. I smiled, shook the man's hand, and wished I could disappear into my glass of cheap champagne. At home, it wasn't much better. Silence became our new language. She'd scroll through her phone while I sat across from her, pretending to read. I caught her once looking at apartments online. "Just exploring options," she said. I nodded. Deep down, I knew the options didn't include me. She started comparing me to her friends' husbands, too. "Did you see what Rachel's husband did? He just bought her a Tesla. And you can't even fix the AC." I wanted to remind her that the AC broke because she refused to let me hire a technician, but what was the point? She wasn't looking for answers, she was looking for excuses to resent me. And don't get me started on her mother. That woman looked at me like I'd stolen her daughter's destiny. Every time we visited, she'd find a new way to remind me that Vanessa deserved better. One Sunday, during lunch, she said, "Vanessa could have married that lawyer from Boston. Remember him?" I smiled and said, "Yeah, the one who still lives with his mother?" She didn't laugh. Vanessa didn't either. There was this one moment I'll never forget. A barbecue at our friend's house. Everyone was talking about vacations, Paris, Dubai, the usual "look how well I'm doing" conversations. Then someone turned to me and asked, "Ethan, where are you two planning to go next?" Before I could open my mouth, Vanessa said, "Oh, we're staying local this year. You know, budget season." Everyone laughed. Even I forced a laugh. But something cracked inside that day. Not my pride that had been chipped away long ago, but my hope. The night after that party, I tried to talk to her. Told her I was working on a new deal, that things could turn around soon. She didn't even look up from her phone. "You've been saying that for 2 years," she said flatly. "Maybe it's time you face reality," I asked. "And what's that supposed to mean?" She finally looked at me that cold, bored stare and said, "It means I'm tired of being married to potential." That sentence hit harder than any financial loss I'd ever taken. Married to potential. Like I was a stock that stopped performing. She rolled over and went to sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of everything falling apart in silence. Over the next few weeks, she started staying out later. "Meetings," she'd say. I didn't ask, didn't want to know. One night, I heard her laughing on the phone, that light, carefree laugh I hadn't heard in months. When she hung up, I asked, "Who was that?" She said, "Someone who still believes in me." That hurt, but I didn't argue. I just nodded and walked away. She started keeping separate accounts, separate plans, separate lives, all while still sleeping in the same bed. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at me like she was already imagining a version of her life without me in it. Then came the final straw, her birthday. I couldn't afford the fancy dinner she wanted, so I cooked at home. Candles, her favorite meal, a little handwritten note that said, "I know times are tough, but so is love." She read it, smiled faintly, and said, "Ethan, this is sweet. But love doesn't pay bills." She blew out the candle, grabbed her bag, and said she was going out for a drink with friends. She didn't come back till the next morning. The following week, she started dropping hints about needing space. Then she booked a solo spa weekend. At least that's what she called it. I found out later she went with a coworker. That didn't even make me angry. It just confirmed what I already knew. She was halfway gone. One evening, she walked in with a manila envelope. Her face was calm, almost too calm. "Ethan," she said, "I think it's time we both moved on." I looked at the papers in her hand. "Divorce?" She nodded. "It's for the best." I didn't yell, didn't beg. I just sat there, feeling the weight of every moment we'd shared turn to dust. She talked about amicable separation, mutual respect, and fresh starts. All I heard was goodbye. When she left that day, she hugged me lightly, like I was an acquaintance, not the man who once stayed up all night brainstorming ways to make her smile. She said, "You'll find someone better." I smiled. "You too." She walked out with her suitcase, heels echoing down the hallway, and for the first time in years, the house finally sounded honest empty. I sat there for hours, surrounded by silence and unpaid bills, and thought about every moment she'd made me feel small. Every snide remark, every half smile, every public jab disguised as humor. Funny thing is, I wasn't angry. I was grateful, because that's the day I realized something she never did. You can't measure a man's worth by his wallet. What she thought was the end of my story was just the middle. She took the chapter she didn't like and walked away before reading how it ended. And oh, if only she knew what was coming next. What she thought was the end of my story was just the middle. She took the chapter she didn't like and walked away before reading how it ended. 2 months after she left, my life did a complete 180. Remember that merger I mentioned? Yeah, the one she thought was wishful thinking? It went through. My so-called dead company got bought by a tech giant. The deal closed at $985 million before tax. The moment I saw the zeros in my account, I laughed so hard I almost dropped my coffee. $985 million. The same man she said couldn't even fix an air conditioner was now worth more than everyone at that family dinner combined. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not a soul. I just kept living simply, driving the same car she said was embarrassing, wearing the same old shirt she once called charity material. I wanted to see how long it would take before the news reached her. Spoiler alert. Not long. It happened on a Tuesday. I got a message from her cousin, Lisa, the same one who laughed the loudest at my barbecue humiliation. "Ethan, oh my God, you're in Forbes," she texted. "Vanessa's losing her mind," I grinned. Of course she was. Apparently, the news hit her during brunch with her girlfriends. Someone opened the magazine, pointed at my face, and said, "Isn't this your ex?" I imagine her choking on her mimosa right there, maybe even dropping her fork. I would have paid good money to see that moment. A week later, she called me. Her number popped up on my screen, and I almost didn't answer. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. "Ethan," she said softly, that same sweet tone she used back when she wanted something. "It's been a while." "Has it?" I said. "Feels like yesterday." She chuckled awkwardly. I saw the article. Congratulations. You really turned things around." "Yeah," I said. "Guess I'm not just potential anymore." She went silent for a moment, then sighed dramatically. "Listen, Ethan, I've been thinking maybe we ended things too fast. I made mistakes, big ones. I just want to make things right." I smiled to myself. "Make things right? Vanessa, you left me for dead, remember?" "I was confused," she said quickly. "I didn't know how to handle everything." "Well," I replied, "seems like you handled it just fine until now." That conversation ended with her saying she wanted to meet for closure. Funny word, closure. In her language, it meant, "I heard you're rich again." 2 days later, she showed up in my office. Expensive perfume, new hair, that same fake smile. "Ethan," she said, stepping inside like she owned the place, "you look amazing." "So do you," I replied. "Guess success makes everyone glow." We sat down, and she gave me this long, emotional speech about finding herself, realizing what really matters, and missing what we had. I listened patiently, nodding like a therapist who already knows the ending. Finally, she dropped the act. "Ethan," she said softly, "I think we should try again, you and me." I leaned back, pretending to think about it. "You sure? Because the last time we tried you and me, I was the broke one." She laughed nervously. "Oh, come on. Don't be like that. I was immature. I didn't appreciate what I had." "Yeah," I said. "You didn't. But don't worry, someone else does now." Her smile froze. "Someone else?" "Olivia," I said casually. "We've been together for a year. She's actually in the next office." Her eyes flickered, and for the first time, she ran out of words. She stood up quickly, muttered something about needing to process, and left. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 months later, I got a letter from her lawyer. Apparently, Vanessa had decided she deserved half of my company. Half. For moral support, I guess. The letter said something about shared marital assets and entitlement due to emotional contribution. I nearly fell out of my chair laughing. Emotional contribution? The woman emotionally contributed to my ulcers. But fine. I played along. My lawyer and I went to court. She showed up in a cream suit, smiling like she'd already won. She gave interviews outside the courthouse, talking about how she stood by me during hard times. I almost wanted to clap. The performance deserved an Oscar. Inside, the judge looked over the documents, flipping through pages. "Mrs. Miller," he said, "you claim your husband's company assets were accumulated during the marriage, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said sweetly. "I supported him through every step." The judge nodded slowly, then turned to my lawyer. "And your response?" My lawyer smiled, slid a folder across the table, and said, "Your Honor, Mr. Miller's assets are owned under Miller Holdings Trust, a private entity established after the divorce. He no longer holds direct ownership of the company." Vanessa blinked. I, I don't understand." The judge adjusted his glasses. "It means, Mrs. Miller, that your ex-husband's company and all related properties are legally not in his name. Therefore, you have no claim to them." The silence that followed was priceless. She looked at me, mouth slightly open, like she'd just seen a ghost holding a checkbook. Wait, so I get nothing? She finally stammered. The judge looked almost sympathetic. Legally speaking, yes, you get nothing. I swear I had to bite my lip to stop from laughing out loud. Even the court reporter smirked. Vanessa's lawyer whispered frantically to her, flipping through papers like a man trying to find a miracle. But there wasn't one. She glared at me from across the room. You planned this, she hissed. I shrugged. Nope, life planned it. I just stopped arguing with the plot. She stormed out, heels clicking furiously against the marble floor, the same sound I'd heard the day she left, only this time it sounded like defeat tap dancing. Outside, reporters were waiting. She pushed through them, sunglasses hiding the tears she swore she didn't have. When they turned to me for a comment, I smiled and said, I guess karma pays dividends. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, and laughed until my stomach hurt. It wasn't joy, exactly more like relief. The kind that comes when the universe finally decides to balance the books. Weeks later, I heard she sold her car, moved into a smaller apartment, and started freelancing online. She even tried to start a podcast about toxic marriages. I almost subscribed just for the irony. Every now and then, I see her name pop up in the news, small mentions, nothing big. Once she even posted on social media, money doesn't define love. I almost commented, you sure? But I decided to let the Wi-Fi do the talking. Life went on. Olivia and I bought a house by the coast, the kind with big windows and quiet mornings. Sometimes we'd walk by the beach and she'd tease me about my ex-celebrity. I'd laugh and say, yeah, she was my biggest investment mistake. Looking back, it's funny how things turn out. The same woman who mocked me for being broke ended up learning the price of greed the hard way, and me, I got the peace of mind money can't buy, and the money too, just for fun. They say revenge is sweet. I say it's hilarious, especially when it comes gift wrapped by the court system. So, if you ever find yourself broke, humiliated, or left behind, don't rush to prove anyone wrong. Just keep building in silence. Because one day, they'll hear about your success and choke on it with extra ice. And when that day comes, smile. Not because you won, but because they finally realize they were never in your league to begin with. So hit the subscribe,